Previously on the Game On podcast.
I mentioned in my book that nobody ever gave me any advice on technique or what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing, and that really included Chester Bennett and the rest of the so-called coaches around the place. That nobody, apart from being a practice captain or practice captains, nobody has really passed on any of their knowledge or any of their what's the word? Any
expertise,
any
sort
advice,
of thing.
if you like.
Yeah, I found that extraordinary reading your book, Rick, and I was going to bring that up a little bit later. And even now, as we said, there was you and I at that game down at West Torrens, and ironically, you'd said to Hags, and then I said it to Hags 2 minutes later about where Drew's grip's gone wrong. And you come back and go, what in the hell? Where's the coaching?
Yeah.
At the moment, and still right back. And
mentorship.
But back then, I think too, and look, Ian was fantastic, but probably Ian, the one weakness about Ian was it was very much sink or swim. You were thrown in the deep end, and like you and Hooksy did in terms of your Shield side in 75, 76, which we're going to get to in a minute, you were very much thrown in and, well, you're the two kids, you get on with it, listen, learn, and that was about, it wasn't really mentorship, it was sort of, you watch, see what we do, and get on with it.
Yeah, that's right. There wasn't any sitting down in a room and going through a game plan or anything like this. And as I mentioned, there wasn't. They just what, and I just can't believe it that the support they've got these days compared with the support we had.
Yeah,
we had nobody apart from. Oh yeah, but even I was thinking of team managers. We used to travel just with the team only and a team manager. The team manager was supposed to be the sort of the semi-coach, if you like, for the tour. But and Hooksy would have testified to this that none of us got any help at all. You just had to rely on your own devices, your own talent. And get on with it, and it's just a big difference to what they've got today.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
Welcome to Game On. My name's Pete, once again joined by Malcolm and mate Rick Darling. Part 1 was fantastic and absolutely enjoyed, and Part 2 obviously coming up later on today.
Yeah, good man, Warwick Maxwell. Enjoyable chat. Probably a couple more cricket ones hopefully to come at the moment.
Absolutely.
Around the grounds.
Today we're going to have a quick look at the basketball. I did leave it on the run sheet because it was pretty impressive, but we'll talk about that one a little bit later. Sturt's comings and goings for 2024 and the soccer. But as per usual, mate, we're going to kick off with the AFL. We'll kick off with Port Adelaide this time round, starting off with Jason Horne-Francis. Can he go to another level this year, or are we a year too early on it?
No, he'll go to another level this year. People's forgetting this is his first ever full pre-season. No, he's pretty special. I lucky enough to be at his debut for South against Nord, and ironically, Fabian Francis was 5 metres away from me on the scoreboard, so I chatted to Fabian at various times during the game. And
yes.
I thought straight away, shit, I've heard a bit about this kid behind and that, so I watch closely from there, and I rate him massively. I think Horn Francis, Butters, and Rosie as a trio, the sky's the limit with those three, and that they're Port's best chance to drag them, jump aboard the bus and follow us. Mm-hmm. Whether they're going to survive defence and all that, we've got to wait and see an attack. But in terms of midfield with those three, I think that's more explosive than any other side in the comp.
It does sort of remind you a little bit of Brisbane back in the day with
the
Black and
four.
and Voss and etc.
Lappin and Ackermanis, etc.
Yep. I'm of the same boat. I think Jason Horn-Francis is going to take it to another level this year, but I reckon the following year, he's going to be even better again. So,
he's pretty special.
I really look forward to watching his development, obviously, throughout this year. And like you said, it's amazing how a pre-season can actually help players take that next step, and being a full pre-season makes a world of difference.
Yeah, no.
All right, we move on to Adelaide. Dan Curtin was in pretty high demand during the draft period. Cal Toomey on AFL.com.au put out a bit of a report on some of the inner workings of how trade nights sort of worked, and there are a lot of clubs that were actually after this young fella. So where do we see him fitting in Adelaide as far as, do we see him playing in round one?
They could have chopped him up on trade night and he could have gone to 5 different spots. He'd be on a pretty good wage for that. No, he'll play round one. Yeah. He'll play that. For what they've thrown in for him, and realising defence is their weakness, I've got no doubt he'll play round one.
Yep. I'm just excited by the Max Michelani and Dan Curtin combination that could potentially, hold that back line down for many, many years to come.
I've got no doubt that Max will be a bit more attacking this year. He has gotten a really good leg, and we probably saw it more negating roles last year. I think he'll be the player for Adelaide who takes the next step.
Okay. Very interesting observation there, especially with Max. But, as I said, I just wanted to chuck in Dan Curtin because he was a very highly demanded player, in the way that picks were being traded live on the night made it very, very interesting reading.
The thing with Max is I just really rate him the way he took being dropped out of Nord's grand final side in 22, where a lot of guys would have spat the dummy, and he didn't. He was very involved before the game still and all that. Mm-hmm. And that got a massive tick within football circles. Don't worry about that.
Yep.
Don't think Adelaide didn't hear all about that very quickly and that. And he is the son of Jim Piano Michelani. We all know that. But he's exceptional leader as a personality, and
he's forging his own career now, and
he'll be in the leadership group
yes.
within a year or two.
Yeah.
And I can see him progressing. Whether he ends up in the midfield or not, I think probably it's more likely to stay down back. Mm-hmm. But I think he'll be the general within time.
Okay. Obviously, we've sidetracked a little bit onto Max, but Max, impressive last year, obviously. Yep. First-year player, basically plays most games.
Oh, and they gave him the big roles, too. They didn't muck around in that way.
They weren't afraid to do that.
No.
I just found it interesting that when it came to, obviously, the Rising Star Award, that he probably wasn't recognised as much as we all sort of thought, but he was leading Adelaide's best and fairest count after round 5. I mean, that's a big tick from a club that's thrown a first-year player into such an important role. And I see Curtin sort of going in that same sort of mould.
Yeah, I think so. And
as I said, I'm excited by it.
I remember the game, too, against Brisbane here where Charlie Cameron kicked 4 on him, and the comment got made back afterwards, that's as good a game as I've ever seen by a defender on a small where a guy's end up kicking 4.
Yep. Anyway, we'll stick with the AFL.
Yep.
We move on. AFL drugs controversy hits the AFL once again with Joel Smith named.
Yeah, look, the name's been around for a while, but it's now more come the significance where it's cocaine in season. So Melbourne were hoping that he was going to get the 3 months and be over summer, and then basically so it's a Mickey Mouse suspension.
Yep. Now he's looking at 2 years.
Yeah, 2-year minimum. So it's not looking like it's going to be that. I'd be very surprised if he has a kick and catch in 24.
Fair call. What do we make of Melbourne at the moment? Obviously, 12 months ago, Simon Goodwin was sort of dragged through the coals a little bit with some of his issues. We do know a little bit about Clayton Oliver's issues as well, and now this. What does that do to a club's stability? Because they have been pretty successful for the last 3 or 4 years, and this could derail them massively.
They've had an horrendous off-season, especially Oliver, and then this just gets thrown in the mix, and now coming out where they'd sort of dismissed it a little bit. With, hey, hang on, no, this is cocaine in season. So look, you just don't know. They'd only need an injury or two gone and something like that.
Changes the dynamic, and especially with the Grundy obviously moving as well. So
you just got to wait and see, but it's either going to galvanise them and it's going to be the world against us, or they could bomb completely.
That's why.
Who knows?
That's why I sort of brought it up, because in some cases it can be the galvanising part of a club's structure for a year, or gives them the big goal for the year, or it could start to lead to tearing them apart. So anyway, we'll watch that one with interest, and I'm sure we're probably going to get an answer on that one fairly soon. Just staying with some of the Melbourne teams at the moment, I know we'd like to talk about the Adelaide teams, but Sam Mitchell back in Australia on a gradual return to Hawthorn, so that's fantastic news for Sam there, and wishing him the best in his recovery. And to finish us off on the AFL in the men's program today, Tasmania's entry in 2028 isn't quite rubber stamped just yet.
They'd want to hurry up and get it rubber stamped, because as we know, these things can drag on, and it then becomes another year delay and another year delay. You know, we think back to a previous guest on our show where Tim Ginniver made the point Port were meant to be in 96, and that probably cost him a spot on the list.
Yes.
So there's things like that. Yeah, it doesn't have to be much delay, and the arguments over funding and
governments.
All of a sudden,
Yep.
And as we know with that's not quick stuff.
No. And obviously they've got to get started on building the facility as well. I know that they've obviously got a couple of ovals that they could use potentially in the meantime, but I fear for where this is heading if it does get delayed by 1, 2, 3 years. Will there be a changing of
It's a fascinating bit to Tasmania as a place where the competitions are all sort of fight against each other, and it's a North and South Island. And we tend to think of Tasmania as this little place, this little cute place at the end of Australia, where it's a hell of a lot bigger than that.
Yep. And
they need to be really united, and North and South don't tend to unite. It tends to be, it's Catholic Protestant sort of stuff.
Yes. It's a classic case of Port and the Crows, or Nord and Port, or exactly. Port and Sturt, and so on, or Freo and West Coast. It's going to be an interesting watch, and I fear for it being delayed any longer than maybe 12 months. Yeah, because these things, like you said, don't happen overnight, especially with governments and funding and all that kind of jazz. And the way that we're in a bit of a cost of living crisis at the moment, that money might get diverted elsewhere, and that would be a real shame. So. Anyway, we'll watch that one with interest. All right, mate, we move on to the cricket. The third test ended up being quite entertaining in the end.
Certainly had it all.
Have it all.
A couple of wickets in the first 2 overs. They're 2 for 4. We thought, geez, they could fall away here. 5 for 90. They'll be all out for 200. Australia will be in front at stumps. Boring, blah, blah, blah. Yep. All of a sudden, Australia bowled badly. Pakistan batted well, recovered to make 313. And then Australia in trouble. Then the partnership.
Yes.
Carey gets out just before tea.
Yep.
Good ball. Probably Kez could have been a bit further forward, but and that.
Hey, you don't mind getting out by good balls. I mean, we've talked about Alex Carey and wanting him to go on.
He's had a couple of reasonable balls this series.
But I was going to say,
he got a good one in there. So, and anyway, but Australia then collapsed after that, and you think, geez, Pakistan here, they've only got to bat reasonably well, and 200, 250 is going to be a hard score to get.
And the way the pitch was starting to act up a little bit, you thought, geez, they're going to get the best of the conditions of what's left in the test, if that makes sense.
And then all of a sudden, another couple of early wickets, and then Travis Head gets Bubba out. Bloody good catch by Carey too. People don't realise how hard a catch that is as a keeper. I'm sitting there thinking, Inglis, he ain't catching that, and that sort of thing.
That's an interesting dynamic. Let's pause on that for a second in that where does Carey sit, obviously, when it comes to the test? They look like they're favouring him. But when it comes to the one-days and maybe the T20s, they're favouring Inglis a little bit. How do you see that playing out?
The word is, and look, I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure I've got pretty reasonable mail.
Yep.
Is that originally Carey was going to play in the World Cup. And then once Labuschagne had success and came into the squad, where Labuschagne wasn't going to be in their original squad, came in, they didn't want to play Smith, Labuschagne and Carey. Well, Carey's a slow starter, and he showed that in the World Cup in England where he had a great tournament, but he takes time to play himself in, and they decided, right, now we're going to go the more explosive finish to the innings here with Inglis.
Right.
And they've ended up winning the World Cup. So it's almost, therefore, okay, we've got to keep going with Inglis here.
Okay.
Look, I've got no problem with Kez not being in the 2020 side.
No.
He wouldn't be in my 2020 side.
Right.
He'd be in my one-day side
Yes.
still.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Anyway, so moving on, obviously Pakistan had Australia, in a reasonably good spot, batting, and like you said, could have put on a big score.
It was almost the Australian side was almost like the old West Indian side, where West Indies back in their dominant era was, doesn't matter how many we make, we'll then just keep you to less. and it was like that, where Australia just blew the game wide open with Hazelwood taking the 3 wickets in an over.
His 5th over was unbelievable. I mean, you talk about classic catches and great batting performances and great batting innings and some very, very good bowling performance, but that performance right there was amazing.
Bit of Mickey Mouse trivia too. First time in Test history you had 2 Test matches within a week where a bowler's taken 3 wickets in 5 balls without taking a hat-trick. At Rabada is also in South Africa. So a bit of quick bit of trivia there.
Yeah. I know we don't have it on a run sheet, but we will talk about that one in a second for sure.
And we'll go to another one off the Big Bash with being stumped off a wide.
Yes, the Diamond Duck.
Yeah, I may have bought another one up with Flipper last night. He was quite impressed with the memory there.
Very,
former
very
guest.
But yes, Australia end up finishing the series 3-0. I thought Pakistan were actually quite competitive.
They were.
Mean, really, it turned out to be a very entertaining series.
It was a good series, and Pakistan could have easily, they had their chances, both Melbourne and Sydney. Not quite so much in Perth, but Perth was still a competitive test match, and then they fell away.
Yep.
Where Marsh gets caught in that second innings in Melbourne.
Yeah, they would have been 5 for 65 or something around about that.
And so, who knows what would have happened there. You can't say Kerry may have walked out of bat at 7 and made a ton. We don't know that.
Yep.
But, geez, they had Australia under the Khyber, and again in Sydney they had their opportunities, and catching is a disease in Pakistan. The trouble is it ain't catching.
Well,
their fielding was terrible.
Not sure whether I've heard you say it or obviously some other commentators say it, but catches win matches, and that
drop catches lose matches.
Okay. I know it's a cliche. I know it's a cliche.
Oh, but geez, they couldn't have caught the 106 bus to Paradise. Jeez,
yeah,
they were terrible.
Anyway, all right, we'll move on. Obviously, Australia coming up against the West Indies. What are your thoughts on Steve Smith being promoted to the top of the order? Is it the right move?
This is very unusual for me. I'm actually on the fence, where I would have picked Bancroft, but I understand the want to get Green in the side.
Yep.
Let's also remember, Green's success at Shield level as a batsman has been at 4.
Mm-hmm.
And he dominated the Shield competition there for a while. Now, I'm a bit worried. He then goes in with really very little cricket for the past month. But that seems to be the way now. Like Travis hadn't held the bat in the World Cup, goes over, smashes 100.
Yep.
Marsh in England hadn't played, comes in the test. So it seems to have less effect than what our traditionalist old bastards think.
But I think that's partly to do with the schedule.
Oh, it is.
Because there is so much cricket going on. That
and
they're
so little time to play World Cup games. So out of that, I would have picked Bancroft, but I understand the selectors wanting to get Green in the side.
Yep.
So that's where I'm on the fence.
Let's stick with that one for a second. Obviously, Australia had 3 or 4 choices there. Is Bancroft, I know they're saying it publicly, is he still being a little bit pigeonholed for the Sandpaper Gate?
You do wonder.
You have to, don't you? Yeah,
You've
this
got
is
to
why.
wonder.
This is
And
why
it makes no sense that we send Warner out as a hero almost. This week, the publicity was probably a bit over the top, but that's the way of the world. Bancroft seems to have been banished. Look, you're told go back, make runs. Now he's dominated the Shield cricket the last 2 years. He is the key wicket in Shield cricket. Playing WA, he looks so good. He's straighter than what he used to be. He did have a weakness where he hit around his front pad. That's gone. I think he deserves another opportunity.
I did find some stats the other day. I'll just find them now. Obviously, Australia did have a couple to choose from as far as, these players that are going to be replacing the top order. Again, going back to the Steve Smith comment, is it really the long-term solution for the Adelaide?
That's the worry, and that's where Renshaw comes into the equation a bit more than Bancroft is 4 years, that they're also thinking, Smith, Khawaja is obviously close to the end as well. So you get it while they're, okay, let's pick Renshaw because he's 4 years younger. So I get that.
Yep.
But Bancroft at 31, players play 36, 37. Hussey did make his debut, Mike Hussey, till after the age of 30.
Yep.
So I think there at the moment, Bancroft does seem to have been blacklisted.
Absolutely. Well, I've got those names and stats actually right here in front of me. You've got Cameron Green, Cameron Bancroft, Matt Renshaw and Marcus Harris. Green obviously leading the Sheffield Shield at of an average of 57.84, Harris at 50.36 and Bancroft at 41.39. So some interesting little statistics there. And then obviously in the tests, it's still Green and Renshaw ahead of Bancroft as well. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to see play out. All right, let's move on to tennis, mate. We did say last week we were going to move this one up the batting order, and that's exactly what we've done. Nadal is out of the Australian Open.
Yeah, disappointing. I think we're all hoping to see the one last hurrah, but it doesn't look that way. You'd say this will be it.
I think this is probably the last time we're going to see him in Australia.
Yeah, you'd say so. And so it's a bit disappointing. But that's the way, the body catches up.
Father Time has caught up with him, and
Yep.
I'm assuming he'll probably set himself now for probably the French Open. I don't know whether the grass on Wimbledon, if this is a hip injury and something like that.
I think it's either that's it, or maybe a farewell at the French.
Yeah, I think we might be there as well anyway. All right, Alex de Minaur is on a bit of a tear at the moment. He'll face one-time Wimbledon finalist Milos Raonic in the first round of the Australian Open.
Not an easy first round draw.
Not an easy first round. But let's think about it logically. This is a Grand Slam. You are always going to come up against some pretty good quality opposition. No matter where you are in the draw. But obviously de Minaur in the last couple of weeks has defeated Djokovic at the United Cup and edging out top 10 rivals Taylor Fritz and Alexander Zverev, and upset Alcaraz in an exhibition match on Wednesday night.
Yeah, and Djokovic carrying an injury before the Australian Open. Gee, who would have believed that? Yes, move on.
I think we've had a few years where that has been the case, so...
More than a hit of sarcasm on my behalf there.
Maybe some ducks and drakes as well. So, but it'd be interesting to see. And obviously, with the Australian Open starting in the next couple of weeks, we will be following that one very, very closely. Just to finish off, the Adelaide International, once again, a pretty good success. Unfortunately for Kokkinakis, didn't quite pan out the way that he would have liked, but certainly great to see some fantastic tennis at Memorial Drive.
And he gets over a bit early, though, now, and you wonder whether that's so bad. So wait and see.
Yep, preparation is key. All right, mate, we're going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, the basketball, the SANFL, soccer, and Rick Darling, Part 2.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
All right, mate, we continue on with the Adelaide 36ers. I don't know whether we should take a little bit of credit for this, but we did give them a fair spray, I suppose, on our last episode, going, can't get any worse than what it is, playing the top team at home. And guess what? They have a Huge win against Melbourne United.
And then again last night against Sydney. They've had a big week. And what a night last night for South Australian sport. So you had the Strikers, the Bite, and the 36ers.
The Giants.
The Giants.
Yes.
Sorry, Giants.
That's right.
All winning last night. It was a bummer that the Reds were scheduled to play Monday or Tuesday instead of last night. Yep. So, yeah, great night last night.
Absolutely.
Well done to a previous guest in Jake Weatherall, the way he hit him last night. Must have been due to running into me on Sunday and catching up with me on Sunday, I reckon.
Words of wisdom, mate. We will listen in anticipation for your next lot of words of wisdom. The Adelaide 36ers playing the Cairns Taipans on Saturday with a chance to climb off the bottom of the table, which is...
It's progression at least, and it's probably helping Scotty Ninnis' chance for getting the gig. So
that was going to be my next guess, is that we've probably called for a review top to bottom, and I think a little bit of reward for effort. I mean, it's been a tough season, and any win, especially a full crowd at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre, which we've talked about previously, against the top side, you're doing things right if you're sitting bottom playing the top side and you've got a full crowd, and then you end up getting a win. They did go back to their old colours, which was very interesting, and I think Scotty Ninnis obviously talked about that, and very interesting that you do go back to state colours. It changes the mindset a little bit anyway.
I reckon it probably unites the crowd as much as anything. So, yeah.
Hey, it's always good to have that extra crowd on your side. All right, mate, we move on to the SANFL. Like every week, we want to try and keep the SANFL in the spotlight. Sturt's turn this week. Will Snelling coming from Essendon. Flynn Perez from North Melbourne. Sam Contaforti.
And, look, Snelling's the big one. West Adelaide were very, very disappointed. They thought he was coming back to them.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting that the Patrick Wilson confirmation after that, maybe the offer got upped as a bit of up you is the word.
Yep.
So...
obviously, Sturt's goings. You did talk about Patrick Wilson there, but I think he's got family involved front of house.
West Adelaide,
West Adelaide. So, totally understand that. Marty Frederick off to Claremont and the WFL.
That's a big loss because his run and carry at times is pretty
a bit of X factor there as well.
Yeah.
So, I totally agree with you there. Josh
Wrench,
off to Victoria.
Yeah, I reckon that's a bit of a loss. He showed a bit of potential up forward. I think they'd be a little disappointed to lose him.
And Locke Rawlinson to West Coast and Will Crane to Murray Bridge.
Yeah, so interesting. Wait and see. That mail is there could be a couple more added to the incomings there as well.
Well, and as we've mentioned previously, we will follow up on all of those extra ads as we go on there. All right, mate. Soccer, Adelaide United broke even against Wellington and Macarthur. I think that's actually a pretty good result.
Yeah, a couple of games, though, they dominated the stats and didn't put them away, in terms of... And I did see one goal Adelaide United missed where you and I might have scored that one.
Okay.
So that was a pretty big... disappointing loss. So.
I like that you're pumping up our abilities here, mate. That's very, very good. But no, I think against Wellington and Macarthur, certainly Wellington were sitting top of the table at the time, is a pretty good result, breaking even with them. But like you said, dominating possession and unfortunately not quite getting the results. Adelaide United playing Sydney United at Allianz Stadium, 7:30 this Saturday, I believe it is.
Yeah, they desperately need a win. Really need that 3 points.
Yeah, 7th and 8th on the table. So really, at the end of the day, this is a must-win game for them moving forward. To finish off on the soccer, Joe Gauci, obviously Socceroo duties at the moment, hoping he gets a bit of a look in, but he's behind some pretty stiff competition.
Yeah, they reckon he's a little bit of a chance for the number 2 gig behind Matty Ryan. So it's... he's been very impressive for Adelaide United, and I'm just really glad that he's got a chance for the Socceroos, and great for him and good for the Reds probably. Goodwin in the side as well with a connection there. So good recognition for the Reds.
Absolutely.
Is probably the way.
There's another young goalkeeper coming through who I used to work with, Ethan Cox, who is an emerging talent obviously there, and if Gauchi does get poached somewhere, I think he's going to get an opportunity at some stage too. From all reports, a very, very good goalkeeper. We might even try and get him on the show at some stage as well. So we'll follow that one up. All right, mate. It's time for part 2. Rick Darling, absolutely looking forward to this part.
Past players, past legends, past legends.
Now, we do have to ask you one question here, Rick. Now, I've always been a believer as an opener. It helps if you're really good mates with your opening partner. And you were with Graham Wood, yet the two of you were kamikaze, and it was always virtually let's have a bet which one of the two of them is going to get run out. Mind you, it seemed to be you more often than Graham. I will say that Rick, but the two of you, for good mates, never really mastered the running between wickets as a pair, though.
No. Still the best of mates. In fact, we probably text or call each other, once every week, once every couple of weeks these days, particularly during the footy season, where we've both got a bit to say. But running between wickets wasn't our strong suit, was it? But
no, it was always entertaining.
How does that come about, though? I mean, who's calling what? Because you can't be running each other out that much.
No. What we've both agreed on is that, say if you're running for, I was a bit quicker than Woody.
Yes.
All right. So if I was coming back for the third, he was just finishing the second. All right. So I'd come back for the third.
Yep.
And of course he wasn't ready to come back for the third, and so he would send me back, or I would send him back, or then there'd be confusion, and then all things hit the fan. So, but there was a bit of a census taken years ago where we worked out who was responsible and who wasn't. Well, I was responsible for running out Woody twice, and Woody was responsible for him running me out 6 times.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was roughly along those lines.
That's not just in Test matches. That's in first class games. Leading up to Tests and whatever. So So
now,
and it does get up my nose a little bit that Melbourne Test. I can't remember what year it was. I made 35, run out, and Woody went on to make 100 that day. And I don't think I was ever seeing the ball better than that day when I made 35, run out. As I said, Woody made 100. His career kicked off, and mine was all over the place until finally they made the decision. So it just annoys me that. What could have happened?
Now, Rick, I do want to do on this it's quite a serious side. Probably with the Test match where you were batting against England, where you were hit by Bob Willis, right? I was sitting in the front row with Vi. I don't know if you remember Vi, regular at Shield games, who'd sit right by the players' race as you walk on the ground. So I was sitting with Vi and my sister, who at that stage was studying med. Is a doctor now, obviously, but she realised that you had swallowed your chewing gum and actually got up to run on the ground.
Oh, yeah. As
John Embry realised and belted you on the back, and then Max O'Connell getting involved.
That's right.
And I don't think people realise that if Embry hadn't have done that, we may well not be talking to you now. And that, it was quite...
Yeah.
I don't think people realised how serious it was, and we've obviously had the tragedy of Phil Hughes, but how close you were as well. And thank goodness, as my sister said, I don't know if it would have been quick enough with running out on the ground, but she actually did get up of her seat and was just pushing the gate, and that to run on when Embry realised.
Well, that was one of those weird things that it just caught me. I'm not sure. It's more the sternum than the heart, but it was the heart that sort of was the problem in the end. And so I was lucky. I had good help out there, and obviously good help that was ready to come onto the ground. But that's one thing that didn't cause any long-term effects. At the end of the day, they didn't find too much wrong.
Yeah.
But it's happened again in the last 12 months. I had a heart attack 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I only over the last 12 months I had a bit of a turn again. I went to hospital and they sort of found nothing wrong, or nothing wrong, but that's apart from I don't know how they say it, but yes, it's one of these things that happen that there's no explanation for.
Wow. Yeah, and then of course you played. Then after that England tour, there was the Pakistan side, and you actually came back in the side to replace Graham at one stage, and you got 79 for South Australia. Always to people to Rick was a gun cover fielder, and it was always worth 20 to 30 runs in that regard. Did World Series cricket nearly happen for you at one stage or not, Rick? That seems to be a bit of a debatable point, that whether you would nearly ended up there or not.
Yes, I was very close to it, actually. What happened was that it wasn't Kerry Packer who rang, but it was obviously one of his managers, whatever, rang Clacker Clark, who was the club coach at the time.
Yep.
In those days, it was etiquette, if you like, for if somebody wanted to talk to a player, they'd go through the club coach, which in this case they did. Clacker then rung me and says, well, just prepare yourself. You're going to get a call from such and such from the Packer mob. So I was quite excited about the prospects of that. But unfortunately for me, or fortunately, depending which way you look at it, the call never came. So, in answering your question, I was a hair's breadth away, if I can say that, and very close.
Now, did you have any superstitions when it came to playing cricket? Was there, favourite pair of jocks or any type of idiosyncrasies that kept you going?
Yeah. Oh, look, not offhand. Most of us players have got little things that, and I'm not saying I did this. You put your left pad on first, or you have your favourite set of gloves, or you'd go through a routine or something before you go out and bat. But I think in those early days, particularly when Mallet and Jenner and these blokes were around, the preparation to a game or preparation before you go out and bat was sit back and have a cup of tea and a cigarette.
Yeah.
So and that had a lot of merit, particularly for me, because I didn't want to go out and exhaust myself in the pre-net warm-up or do any of the stuff they do these days. I wanted to relax. And as I said, follow the suit of TJ and Rowdy, have a cup of tea and a cigarette. And I found that more relaxing than anything else. Or, sorry, you're talking about superstitions. That was probably my superstition, to go through that routine.
We all have them.
Couple of characters there anyway, too. Yeah, lucky enough to do a few coaching clinics with both of them, and a couple of incredible characters.
Was it just a cup of tea, or was it maybe spiked a little bit?
Later on in the night, it would have been with those two.
Yeah.
Especially with TJ.
Yeah, things didn't really change until the till the end of the day, when the cup of tea would change to something a bit more hard. In those days, you could have virtually as much as you like, which is stupid.
Yeah.
But that was the culture back then. So
different time.
You wouldn't leave the rooms until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. So.
And then we all drove home too.
That's right.
Move
That's
on.
right. So it was and having said that, Mallet and Jenner and a few others in the team weren't really good mentors, if you like, in that area. Even though you sort of looked up to them and tried to copy what they did, it wasn't, obviously, as we know now, smoking's no good for you, drinking's no good for you. But that's what you did back then. And, whether you were 35 or 17 like I shouldn't say that I was 17 because I was too young to drink. But I had a Coke until I was 18.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think the statute of limitations are well and truly over by now. Pretty safe.
And then the Indian tour, Rick. So you also had some illness on that tour, and let's be honest, if you didn't go to India and get crook, you probably weren't doing your job there either. So
Delhi belly.
Yeah, so you didn't really have much luck there, Rick.
No. Which tour are you talking
about?
The
Tour of India in '79.
Yeah. Now what happened?
That was after the World Cup.
Yes, yeah. Well, yes, I had. Not only I had sickness, everybody had sickness. Yeah. It's just, I think I may have missed the first test because of sickness.
Yep.
But then then after that, I got a few injuries for this and that. But if you go to India, it's very hard to avoid the Delhi belly or coming down with something. So. I missed the first game, which probably put me on the back foot a little bit to try and establish myself again, because Hilditch was there, Wood was there, and so they had options, And
you got sconed by a Kapil Dev bouncer, which didn't probably help either, too. So
I think that was in the last test in Bombay.
Yeah.
Might be wrong with that.
Yep.
So I think that was at the end of the tour. So. That didn't have any bearing on my selection or fitness, throughout the tour, if you like.
And that would have been back in the days where there weren't any helmets either.
Well, that's right. I did get, as you said, sconed by Kapil Dev in Bombay. No helmet. I think I ended up getting 4 or 5 stitches in the head.
Yep.
It was quite a funny thing. I was, off to hospital. I'm not sure it was an ambulance or whatever, but the doctor said that when I got there, he knew that I was a cricketer, and he said, "Look, I'm not going to stitch you up till you give me an autograph." So I quickly signed the autograph or whatever he want me to autograph and whatever. But you can imagine a Bombay hospital, back in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't the cleanest of spots, but anyhow, I thought I was getting good care, and it was quite an experience.
So you're a bit unlucky too then. So obviously World Series cricket finished up, so all of a sudden a hell of a lot more players were back in the equation with making the test side. So yeah, you started off the year well in 79-80. You made 88 against the West Indies here. And you realised that you had to open if you were going to play Test cricket because there were so many middle order players, Ian and Greg back around, Doug Walters, etc. So the Peter Toohey and Yallop. So I had to open. So your career followed along those lines, really, where caught between the rock and the hard sea, where you should have batted, etc.
Yeah. Well. It didn't matter, where you wanted to bat. It's where they selected you to bat. It was, it wasn't up to me. Even though I would have loved to bat middle order, it wasn't up to me to do that or have any say in the matter. For that matter, they saw me because I had reasonable success, if you like, being an opener. That's where they wanted me to bat. Whereas I always thought, geez, it'd be nice to be coming in at 4, 5, or 6 when the ball's a bit older and the spinners are on and whatever. opening the batting is probably the hardest job in cricket, and I thought I'd served my apprenticeship in that, and I wanted to bat middle order, but the hierarchy said no. So,
and of course,
did you find that confusing as far as what your role is? Because obviously you talked a little bit earlier on about role players, and everyone's got their role to play in a Shield sense, but also in any team sport. But did you feel like you were getting bounced around a little bit and not quite sure of where you actually fitted into the team?
No, I wasn't. Whatever. Look, I was not in. What's the word? I was just not. I was sort of a bit confused about my own ability. I didn't, and it was, as I said before, it wasn't up to me where I batted. I just went out and tried to contribute. Whereas I thought, as Malcolm alluded to before, that he would have loved to see me play more so against the spinners than I did the pacemen of the teams. But it's a hard one. But I just had to bat where I was told, basically.
And then, so you got recalled more on the one-day side of things. You had success, had a really good year in 81-82, and we'll certainly take our time on 81-82 as a South Australia Shield.
We've got all night here.
As a South Australian Shield nut. We will get to 81-82 in terms of the last game especially. And so you had your success there, made a couple of hundreds and came back into the equation of the one-day side, Rick.
That's right, yeah. That year or that season was one out of the box, really. Just for some reason, something evolved in my game, if you like, and I became more aggressive. I started to drive more, and not just drive, just hit the ball hard. I used to, even though I was hooking always, I would hook more, I would pull more, cut more, but hit the ball hard instead of just caressing. So that's one thing I didn't mentally try and do. It just sort of happened in the first game, and I got away with it. I had a really purple patch during that season, and I think I ended up topping the averages for Australia that season. So it was a good year, and the reason for that, I tried to become more aggressive.
And your partnership with Flipper that year was really successful opening pair, and certainly played a huge part of us winning the Shield in the end. It was a light batting with 159.
159.
As we know, he calls himself that night.
We've had him on. We've had him on. He loves that.
He loves the 159, doesn't he?
Yes.
I don't know what's his. I can't say his email. Over
yes,
the phone,
but it does feature 159, as we know.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Flipper and I had a good rapport that year. We both made a lot of runs, and Hooksy always alluded to the fact that the reason why we won the Shield is because Flipper and I had six opening partnerships, 6 first innings partnerships over 100. Now that is going to win you most games.
And we came from the clouds, really. We 3 or 4 games to go. We were sort of no chance, and then we won those couple, and it came down the last game against Victoria. We had to win outright. Julian Weiner is absolutely dominating. Played a bloody great innings, actually. And a brilliant piece of fielding by Brian Vincent changed the game on the first day.
Yes.
Square leg. Don't worry. I can quote that game nearly ball by ball if you want, Rick. And that side of things. And so we went to stumps. They were 6 for at stumps. where Evil got a couple of wickets, got Davies out with the new ball just before stumps, and it went to stumps evenly poised, where at tee and after tee it really looked like, we were pushing the proverbial right back in it, knocked them over the next morning, and we sort of dominated the game from there. And that, you made runs with Flipper, and everyone contributed. And then the second innings, we'll keep testing your memory here, Flip, Rick, where Green got run out where it would have been a dead ball. It was quite bizarre, bit of running between wickets, that one. So, and Hooksy moved himself to the gully on a hunch that there was going to be a catch the next ball, and he caught Sakristani in the gully the next ball. And so we bowled him out, and then you and Flip dashed off the ground to open, and we got him pretty comfortably in the end, where Jeff Crowe swept the late John Scholes for 4, and that ball landed right next to where I was sitting.
Yeah,
on that one.
Yeah. It was probably a fitting end to the season, really.
It was fantastic.
I don't think it was any doubt that we were the best team all year, but you still had to get the points on the board, didn't you? And as Hooksy said, the 6 opening stands, first inning stands was it's going to help a hell of a lot to win a Shield, and plus the fact we had good backup. When I say backup players, number 3 with Jeff Crowe, and Hooksy was
Inves
4. He was 5. That's going to test you.
Hooksy at 4, Inves 5, Sleepy 6, Righty 7, Vincent 8, Evil 9, Sam Parkinson 10, and Malcolm Dolman 11, with Graham Winter as 12th man. So that's not too bad quoting the side off the top of the head.
Yes,
too.
pretty good depth too.
No, you would have had me on that one, but look, and the reason why I think it doesn't matter what sport you play, whether it's footy, cricket, or whatever. The reason why teams win premierships is because everybody, the camaraderie is strong. You particularly in football, you do anything for your mate next door, and it's the same with cricket. You'd band together. Band together, and that's what we did. We realised that we got to make a partnership here, or whatever you do. We just had that camaraderie right through the year, and I don't think the team, from memory, did change much at all that year, apart from the usual one or two.
It stayed pretty similar. And look, I will always massively appreciate Malcolm Dolman invited me into the rooms that night. I don't think certain David William Hooks was happy I was in there, but that's another story. And I just sat in the corner. I was 18. I sat, don't worry, I grabbed a beer as it got passed around, but I just really sat and just watched. And I reckon we left and went to the Grenfell. You guys all went to the Grenfell Tavern on memory. I reckon it was getting towards midnight as we left the rooms. And that,
that'd be right. That was
that's one of my favourite memories as a lunatic South Australian supporter, well and truly.
And isn't that a good memory though? Of particularly if you're a player and in that situation and have contributed like we all did at some stage throughout the season, just to take a deep breath and say, well, the season's over. Look what we've done, and then the festivities continued on for weeks. It's not drinking or carrying on, but a lot of the functions were, black tie, and everybody wanted a little piece of us, and we were happy to celebrate.
And in that regard too, Rick, I think in the reflection of which this sort of interview is a reflection of your career, the fact you played in 2 winning South Australian Shield sides, there ain't many South Australian players can say that, Rick.
No. Look, I was only. Yes, the cupboard's been a bit bare since '96, wasn't it? So, Yes, no, I was, and I was discussing this with somebody, and we come up with nobody who's currently living, if you like, has played in the 70. What was the 75,
76
6
and
and
81,
81,
82
2.
was, was Hooksy's,
But another
obviously,
little stat to that you've probably forgotten about, that I was a selector in 96 when we last won it.
Very good
So
point.
I've had dealings with three of them, so to speak. So
that's a good point. I admit I had forgotten you were a selector in
Malcolm,
96,
I reckon
97.
we need to get the Sackers phone number right now and point this man in the direction of their selection for their next Shield win, which will be this year, according to Malcolm's Christmas wish last year.
Yeah, Christmas wish, yeah. I reckon a certain Warwick Maxwell's son, Sam Darling, could hopefully be in the equation, keeping at some stage in the future.
Well, I certainly, that would be nice, but... he's got a few hurdles to jump there, unfortunately.
I reckon he's getting there, though, Rick. I reckon there's been pleasing, steady improvement overall, and certainly his most important innings, that game before Christmas. So, yeah, there's promising signs there from young Sam. So
Yeah, but he's in the side as a keeper. Whatever he does as a batsman is just icing. So, but to push yourself as a keeper in South Australia these days is another story.
Yeah, but I reckon his timing might be all right in the end. So we're just going to have to wait and see there. Another 3 or so years, I reckon his timing might be all right, and hopefully some other things change in South Australian cricket.
That's a good point. But, he's 30 years old at the moment. So, but look, cricketers years ago was mid-20s before they blossomed. Now it's 30 and 31, 32. So
I admit I didn't realise he was. I thought he was a little bit younger than that, but we can only hope, Rick. I reckon I've seen him keep 3-4 times this year. I'm very impressed. Now look, back to the 82-83 season, and again another serious point. Unfortunately, you got pretty badly hit by John Moose Maguire and suffered bleeding, and that's probably affected everything else since.
That finished me. That finished me in a split second. I was in hospital. They didn't know whether I was going to regain the sight of my eye, and I was in hospital for a week, and umpteen plastic surgeries in the eyelid, etc., etc. And I had plenty of time to reflect in hospital, and I just said to myself, look, I don't want to be there anymore. And of course I had the rest of that season out of playing. But the next season I came back into the side and did sort of reasonably well. But again, I still didn't want to be there. And I should have given the game away then, but they continued picking me for another 2 or 3 years after that, when my heart and soul wasn't there, and of course my ability and my record, if you like, was tarnished because I played that extra couple of years. So, but anyhow, that was scary, and it did finish my career from John Maguire.
Yeah, and a couple of things. So probably one thing we did gloss over was your top score, 91 in Test in Sydney, Rick, as your highest score. And also, of course, the other notable thing in your career was you had the perfect seat down the other end of one of the great innings in history of Hooksy's 100 off 34 balls, where you basically just did what the rest of us were doing, watching.
Yes, well, the 91, I remember Sydney that year, and it was horrifically hot test. This time of year, I suppose it was, because it was a New Year's Day test, however that used to work, but around this time of year, and I remember I was 60 odd out, 60 odd not out overnight and thought, well, this is a big chance here. I think I got about another 30 before lunch the next day, and was out soon after lunch for 91. So it was a bit disappointing, and it was just a simple little tuck around, leg glance around the leg off one of their off spinners, and caught by both them in leg slip. So it was disappointing. But again, as we said before, I would have been happier to obviously get 100, but at least I contributed. So.
And then
So
that innings where Hooksy was, exploding, where Graham Yallop didn't declare earlier and went in and was virtually an up you the way he batted. But geez, that was some incredible hitting that innings.
Oh yeah,
It's unbelievable.
Hooksy and I opened the batting for. Obviously, he was. He was pissed off the way Hooksy could get, and he said, "I'm going to open the batting with me, and let's go out and give it a nudge." So I think I faced first ball, got a single.
Yep.
And it was all over.
And then you watched from then on, basically, Rick. Yeah.
Well, whenever I got down the batting end, and I could see this happening right from the start, all I had to do was push for a single, because it would have been wouldn't have been in my best interest to try and hog the strike and me try and hit fours. Let Hooksy do it with the mood he was in.
Yeah, didn't he put Sean Pornograph and King was the other bowler, and Rod McCurdy put there was fair. She was good sitting by the Victor Richardson gates, because we were virtually fielders as well for that innings. So, it was incredible. So, So then you moved on. As I said, you were involved as a selector since. So where are you at now, Rick, in terms of obviously watching Sam a bit? And, so involvement otherwise at all, or anything?
No, not really. As 20-odd years ago, I suppose now, at least that, I did selecting there for 3, 4, 5 years maybe. Since then, I've had nothing really to do with cricket. I play the odd veterans games and things like that, or exhibition games, whatever. Something that I sort of regret the next day, but. It's these days I'm probably semi-retired, if you like. I've been semi-retired now for probably 10 years, and probably during that time that sort of prompted me to write this book. So now I'm even more semi-retired, if that can be. I spend a lot of time with the grandkids and working in my garden and all sorts of stuff. So, but I work 2 days a week for a retirement village, Rest Haven, as a gardener, and thoroughly enjoy that. And 2 days a week is just enough to keep some sort of fitness up and keep my hand in the gardening.
Now, mate, we'll get you out of here on this one. It's been a fantastic interview so far, but like we do with most of our guests, we like to ask them their favourite players they played with and hardest opponents. So maybe 2 or 3 of each.
Yeah. Look, the players I've most admired, I'll give you two opening batsmen that I wish I could have emulated: Jeff Boycott and Sunil Gavaskar.
Yep.
Now both them weren't attacking or flamboyant or exciting to watch, but you look at it, the end of the day, they're 130 not out. And that's the way I wish I could have played my game, but I was too happy in being just contributing. I didn't have the big score mentality in me. But that's Boycott and Gavaskar. probably the most, you mentioned the feared players. Well, you could line them up from one end of the West Indies to the other. So yeah, probably. I was going to say Holding, but I say Roberts is probably the most scariest bowler because he could get that bouncer to come up just short of a length. Garner, of course, you could, and it was probably not a good era to be part of because that was the golden age of the West Indies cricket, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Mind you, in some regards, Rick, it's a privilege to have been in that position. You think of just how bloody good they were, and now, sadly, to watch how bad they are, or you can at least go, hey, I played against the greats, the all-time greats, And
that's right.
That's pretty important.
I've said to a lot of people that, over my career, I've been happy to play with the best and against the best. So that's all I think anybody could ask, and contribute in most of my career is quite fulfilling.
And that's the best part about this podcast. We like to get on some past players and reminisce about some of their exploits and relive some of those great moments. So, mate, thank you very much for joining us.
Especially South Australia winning Shields.
Okay, fellas, thanks very much.
Greatly appreciated, Rick. Thank you.
Righto. See you, bye.
Thank you. Rick Darling, part 2. Absolutely fantastic to have Rick on. And as you mentioned,
some big injuries. And it was fascinating where he did admit with the last one to Joe Dawes that he played on after that, but sort of in some respects wishes he hadn't, that he wasn't in terms of, fully embossed, and understandable because how many injuries he did cop, and of course, very nearly dying at Adelaide Oval.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That part of it was an amazing part of the story is that how close some players come is very, very scary.
John Embry to Max O'Connell virtually to save his life, and that's probably, I think, because it was such unusual, someone getting serious, and it's then took the loss of Philip Hughes probably to people realise that, hang on, this could, it's lucky it doesn't happen more often. So,
you think about it, these balls are going down at 150 clicks in some cases or more. There's not a whole lot of reaction time, and I think the classic case was Marsh during the Test series got hit in the back of the helmet, but because of the technology and the way that they've redesigned the helmets, it actually probably helped him. So, we thank Rick for his time, and as we've said previously, this coming Tuesday
at Adelaide Lutheran Footy Club from 7 o'clock. Everyone's welcome. So it's corner of South Terrace, West Terrace, basically. Old style sports night with John Harms from the Footy Almanac. No cost to get in at all. Can't ask for better value than that.
Absolutely.
And
we'll both be there. So
we'll
come say hello.
Yep, definitely.
Fantastic. All right, mate. Let's take a very, very quick break. When we come back, happy days.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe. Happy days.
Kick off happy days today, mate. One of my favourite players. I have a huge amount of respect for this player. And this week, happy birthday to Brodie Smith.
Recently engaged, too.
Yes, over the Christmas break.
Yep.
So congratulations on both parts.
Yes.
Adelaide's first selection with the 2010 draft. Smith came to the Crows as a ready-made player from Henley and Woodville West Torrens. Geez, Woodville West Torrens have produced some very, very good players over the journey, haven't they?
Oh, and his mum had very good taste in books for a birthday present for Brodie too. So thanks to his mum for that one, for a copy of the definitive rulebook for him.
There you go. Obviously became an All-Australian, earned a 22 under-22 selection in 2014. However, in 2017, an ACL injury or rupture during the qualifying final. Despite his meticulous approach, unfortunately wasn't able to get up for that, but got back onto the field in I'd say record time of around about 317 days, which is pretty good.
There's been a few less, but that's certainly around the mark in terms of recovery. And look, he was a huge out. The Crows really missed his length for the kick and the carry, the line. And, he was in pretty good touch back then too. I think he's been a good player since, but I think he was bordering on the elite back then.
Absolutely. Yeah. Talking about elite, he returned to Adelaide's defence in 2023, playing 22 games, averaging 21.2 disposals, 5 marks, 2.3 tackles. But while being rated elite along the competition, he was on averaging 520.1 metres per game, which is fantastic.
Well, it's his length of leg.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He's got an unusual kicking style. He really punches it. It's almost like a soccer corner kick and that. But, yeah, he's a lovely long leg. And, look, he's an important player.
I love watching him when he's about 55 out because he's always going to have a ping, and he's usually pretty good too. Yeah. Hence the reason why I got a lot of respect for him. So happy birthday to Brodie Smith this week. All right, we move on to cricket 1960. Sir Garfield Sobers and Frank Worrell.
Sir Frank Worrell as well.
Yes, complete 399 stand for the 4th wicket against England.
Yeah, 2 absolute champions. Let's also remember Frank Worrell's part in the resurrection of cricket, effectively, of the 60-61 series here against with Richie Benaud and the two of them. The Tide Test and then the Lindsay Klein and Slasher Mackay holding on for the draw here.
Yep.
It's one of the all-time great series in cricket, and they had a ticker tape parade for the West Indies leaving Australia. Now, just think of that. That is quite extraordinary.
That is extraordinary.
In Melbourne, and, they said there was 100-odd thousand line in the streets thanking a visiting team for what they'd done for the game of cricket. I don't think it's ever happened before, and it certainly won't happen again.
I don't think it will happen again. No. We certainly need, as far as cricket goes, a little bit of a change of thought at the moment, and we certainly need someone or a team to come in and sort of save where the direction's going at the moment. And we've talked about it at length, obviously.
With need some
way
officials with their attitude.
Where the structure just needs to be tweaked a little bit to work for everybody. All right, we move on to tennis, mate. Obviously very topical over the next couple of weeks, but last night I was watching the McEnroe documentary, I suppose it was. But this player obviously figured prominently during McEnroe's autobiography or show. Bjorn Borg of Sweden wins his first of 2 season-ending ATP Tour Masters Grand Prix tennis titles, outclassing American Vitas Gerulaitis 6-2, 6-2 in Madison Square Gardens in 1980.
I love watching Bjorn Borg. One of the all-time greats. He's up there on you're saying the Mount Rushmore. He's there.
You forget that he retired at 25 or 26 effectively. McEnroe talks about how it drove him to be a better player, and he really missed his mates, really, at the end of the day. They became mates.
Yeah. And I think McEnroe loved being challenged.
Yes, absolutely. And then obviously Gerulaitis passing away in unfortunate circumstances there, I think really knocked the tennis world around for a little while there. But Bjorn Borg obviously talking about more to life than tennis, and I think that's very, very important. And I think we're seeing that a bit more these days with players, and maybe he was a bit ahead of his time.
Yeah, because nowadays there's no way in the world a player retires at that age as a male.
Yes.
Female, you could understand a little bit more, decide to have children, whatever, but a male,
Yep, unbelievable. All right, mate, we move on. 1967, boxing. Louisville, Kentucky. Draft board refuses an exemption for a boxer. Any guesses as to which boxer that might be?
The great man,
Muhammad Ali.
As I've said, it's still one of my all-time favourite moments, being lucky enough to be at the G for the Muhammad Ali entrance to the G. It's still
lap of honour.
The atmosphere with that lap of honour was extraordinary.
Absolutely, and we all know how that one ended up. And to finish us off in 2009, soccer/football for our football listeners. Cristiano Ronaldo awarded the 2008 FIFA World Player of the Year for the first time at a ceremony in Zurich.
He probably hasn't painted himself in glory a couple of times since, though. He's managed to personally himself destroy what should have been an absolute legacy and remembered as an all-time great. But I think we're remembering Jeezy's a good player, but Jeezy was a spoilt little brat and deserved a decent punch in the nose, would have done him the world of good sort of thing.
There'd be some players that would, some people would say that about McEnroe at the time as well. So, look, sport is going to be littered with these players, and in our extra time big finish, we've got one of those players coming up. So let's scoot into it right now.
Extra time, big finish.
Short, sharp and shiny, extra time big finish today, mate. The Adelaide Giants continue to impress with series wins against Canberra and trying to win this week against the Sydney Blue Sox.
Yeah, a bit disappointing losing that fourth game against Canberra where that would have just about tied up first place. It's still now up for grabs this weekend. A win last night.
Yes.
We're winning 4-0 last night against Sydney. So hopefully, I think we need to win two more.
Yep.
Two more would probably do it.
Sounds about right, but certainly Adelaide, the team to beat at the moment.
At least it's in their own hands.
But bring on the finals.
Yeah.
Adelaide well placed and really need to go on with it.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be great? It took them 43 years to win one, and it's only taken them another one to go back to back. So
we can only hope.
I am looking forward to getting down and watching some of the finals down at West Beach. All right, mate, we move on to the NFL. New England Patriots part ways with legendary coach Bill Belichick after 24 years. That seems to be the mail at the moment. I'm still trying to work out how official it is, but it looks like that's the way it's going to go.
It's just a little bit hard to follow, though. You're sort of reading, and you're far better knowledge than me, but I've picked up a couple of things and go, well, has he or hasn't he?
Yes, he's relinquished one role, but he's going to stay on in another role, but it looks like it's gonna end up that Belichick is going to depart. He leaves an impressive legacy at the New England Patriots with an impressive 6 Super Bowl wins with the team. His departure is partly because of one of the worst finishes since 1992.
Yeah, it's
a sad way to finish up a little bit, but
it's still a great career.
You just can't go any better than that. All right, mate, and to finish us off with some general news, Sam Kerr missed the Olympic qualifiers due to an ACL injury.
Yeah, you don't think she'll be back for the Olympics with that.
Yep.
So it's a disappointment, obviously, for Sam, huge loss, and we just wish her all the best with it now because, it is basically a year injury. A bit disappointed, that the alternative surgery there for a while really hasn't kicked on, laser and that. So it's generally now a year out.
I mean, look at her during the matches here in Australia, looked labouring at times. They were using her in a pinch-hitting role. Yeah. So, you're right. Something wasn't quite right, and something's had to give. And on this occasion,
calf at that stage. I don't think that's...
No, it had nothing to do with the knee, but I'm just saying injury has just started to catch up with her a little bit, and this one's probably the icing on the cake, so to speak. And, it's not what she wanted. And like you said, a year out of the game. I don't think it's going to hurt her, but I think it's going to be one of those things that it's going to take a little while for her to get over. And like we said, talking about super brats, Nick Kyrgios obviously ruled himself out of the Australian Open or the first Grand Slam of the year due to injury. A little bit disappointed with that.
You wonder if you'll see him again too.
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest, his heart's not in tennis. It's
not at the moment.
It's not like he's desperate to compete. He never really has been. He's not a tennis head.
No.
He's not a sports head. So, look, I admit I'm not a huge Kyrgios fan.
You're not a fan.
So.
No, that's cool. But from an entertainment point of view, look, certainly someone to watch. And we hope that he gets back on the court and gets himself right and takes the time that he needs. I mean, it's not going to be the first player that's walked away and then come back, but whether he comes back and then comes back for the right reasons, that's something we've got to look at. All right, mate, let's finish off with the good, the bad, the ugly for the week, mate.
I think you've got to go the pink test. It is fantastic how it unites, Sydney. It does add another dimension. I'd love to have every test match for a cause. I brought that up on Saturday morning on AA. Whether the One Punch for Sammy D Foundation, where because of Hooksy, you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be throwing open the markets, but just Sydney, it does add another dimension. Oh, look, I know their goal, and their goal was the 322,000, the perpetual.
The seating, pink seating,
and that sort of thing. I did find that a little bit touch of irony that they reached that 322nd thousand seat of the aim the last minute Glenn McGrath was on the air.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll take that with a grain of salt, but it's still a great result.
Absolutely, and any cause that is going to raise money for something that needs to be researched and fixed and a cure would be fantastic.
The most emotional moment for me of the Sydney Test, they had Travis Head's auntie, who is a breast cancer survivor, and that's when Travis got Bubba out that he ran. That was to his auntie. That was the motion to his auntie. And don't worry, the Waterworks got a decent walkout when that was on TV in the tea break.
Yep.
And that. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
You bad for the week, mate? Bad/ugly.
Look, I still think. Well, you've got the Joel Smith. We still wonder there. There's still. You want to hear the good stories in sport, and not that
we're not concentrating on the bad stories. So to speak.
Him, Oliver with Melbourne. You just wonder a bit. Oh, look, okay, bit of personal bit. The good news for me was Jake Weatherall last night.
Yep.
Some Jake's a person who I value highly, and as we said, I think he was unique in the interview that he probably gave the best answer I've ever heard anyone give about mental health, and that he wasn't afraid to share that. I think was great.
Yep.
And so, for me, that was the other good bit
the highlight
out of last night.
Yep, fantastic. Yep. My good for the week is probably Alex Minaur at the moment on a little bit of a roll, and good to see him break into the top 10. We didn't quite mention that a little bit earlier, but I'll mention it now. Yep. He's broken into the top 10 for the first time since, I think, Leighton Hewitt. So that is good for Australian tennis. Yes, he does have a little bit of a tough opening round to the Australian Open, but I did hear him talk the other night, and he's in the right frame of mind at the moment that I think he thinks he can go out there and beat anybody on his day. So that is my good for the week. My bad for the week has probably been the hysteria around Davey Warner. I'm going to get shot. I'm going to get shot down for this a little bit. Obviously, he had a great career, fantastic. But yes, the cap for me.
The cap was meh.
There was something not quite right.
Smelly.
Yeah, there's something not quite right there with that. Where it went, who had it, whether it was Qantas or not, or whether it was misplaced in a bag, whether he had a boy look, as some of us female companions let us know about it from time to time. So, yes, and my ugly for the week is a bit like you, mate. The Melbourne saga, it just seems to be rolling on at the moment. And like I said, I think we're concentrating on the wrong things.
I think if Warner had come out and gone, geez, I stuffed up on that. I didn't look properly. I panicked. Yep, completely my stuff up. We'd wear it. But no, he threw the Qantas workers under the bus.
Yep.
Then it appears, and there's still mystery about that. Instead of just coming out, Australians are good if you admit you've made a mistake.
Yep.
But, geez, we get pissed off when you haven't got the guts to admit you made a mistake. That's probably the way to put it.
Fair call. All right, mate, huge episode today. Absolutely fantastic again to have Rick on the podcast. And like as per usual, mate, we promise to do better next week.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.